welcome to this month's Side Alpha Leadership. I'm your host, David Polikoff. On the line with me, I have, or actually in the studio via the internet, I've got Mike Burkett. Mike works with me and a host of other instructors from Capital Fire. Mike's also a career captain in Baltimore City Fire Department. So, Mike, welcome to the show, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Dave, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the fire service for about 36 years. I started outside of Wilmington, Delaware as a volunteer firefighter, actually at 5 Points Fire Company when I was 15. I took a liking to it right away. Even prior to that, as a kid, my mom used to walk me by the firehouse, and, I took a liking to it right away. So I got in there when I was 15. It kind of kept me out of trouble for the most part, going through high school. Probably about 20, I started working up in the county as a full-time, part-time firefighter once I got my EMT. And I did that in the county probably until my early 30s as a firefighter full-time. I ended my career up there with Christiana Firehouse. I had a tremendous time there. That place by far was, I give them a lot of credit for my exposure and experience to the fire service. Back then, we were running short-staffed. We didn't have the ride-along program we have now, which is a tremendous program. So we were, it was John Wayne time pretty much. We dealt with a lot with very little. So we that was a great eye-opening experience. I left there in 2006, 2007, was hired on the Baltimore City Fire Department. Went through the academy, got assigned to Truck 12 up in Northwest Baltimore. So a guy from Delaware. I had no idea anything about Baltimore besides the harbor. I knew they went to fires, and I wanted to be there. I was in my early 30s, and I'm like, well, I remember the guy in the academy was like, look, you guys, the older guys, getting ready to take a beating, so just be ready. So, so I got assigned there. Great officers, old school firemen. They were by the book. I held, I stayed in that watch desk and relearned my job again for 2 years, and I made sure that I did it the right way. I didn't walk in there with, hey, I did this for so many years prior to. I was very humble for being there. I was around a lot of good firemen, and I learned a lot of great stuff. So fast forward, I did my time there. I made EVD, which is the emergency vehicle driver. So I was assigned as a tillerman to Truck 15. It's a single truck house in East Baltimore. I was the floating EVD there. So I wasn't always there, but I made sure that if I had a chance, if there was someone off, I was detailed there. But if not, I was in the 2nd Battalion, which held some great truck companies, Truck 5, Truck 1, Truck 16. So I had phenomenal experience as the EVD. And being a tillerman, you're in the back, so you have the greatest picture of all as being the on the truck company. From that point on, I started studying for lieutenant, Truck 15. They actually closed us in 2011-ish. So I went on to Truck 1 as an EVD. I did a year or two there, and I started studying for lieutenant. I was well into my 30s. I figured I needed to start moving the chain there, move up the ranks. So I was did pretty well. I was promoted, and I got assigned to Engine 36 in West Baltimore. I was there for about a year. Great experiences on the engine company. A lot of good first-in fires. The West Side, competitive. Everybody's on top of each other. Everybody's into the game. There's less wiggle room over there. So, being on the engine company, you got to know where you're going and so forth. But yeah, that was fun. I had, great time there. But I always knew I wanted to be on a truck company. So Lieutenant Folderhauer, he called me. He was getting ready to take a transfer up to Squad 54. And I jumped on it right away. So I went to Truck 5. And I was there for lieutenant for about, 8 or 9 years. I didn't really take the captain's test. Like, a lot of my guys that came in with me took it, and, good for them. But I really enjoyed the first-in fires, the experience, and I really fell in love with it. One of my biggest things was being there as a lieutenant. I worked with a lot of great people. I had the opportunity to, mold young people into the job. And as a leader, my biggest thing with that is, I'm proud to say, the guys that came before me as my firefighters, most of them that wanted to be a lieutenant are lieutenants now. So I made that my priority is being a transformational leader, hold them accountable to studying and always constantly quizzing them. So yeah, I'm very proud of that. So yes, that ate up a lot of my time being there, but I will never not take that back. That was some great experience, great first in fires. And, we worked through the riots, first in a lot of fires. We had a lot of different stuff, and I'll tell you, it was phenomenal. So real quick, Chief, you're going a little blurry. Can you still see me?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Cool. So fast forward, I finally started really taking seriousness about the Cap's test. So I started really studying more into it, and I was lucky enough to be promoted. So from that point, I went to Engine 6 in the 2nd Battalion, another good company, engine company. Nothing against engine companies, but I was there for about a year. Great time, great fun. Started getting the itch back to go back to a truck company. So I took Truck 26. I was there for about 2 years. Phenomenal crews. Captain Barnes, he's still captain up there. He's he's a 33 engine, great Saudi fireman, excellent officer, fireman officer, great street credibility. When you talk about fire officers, that's a big thing for me, is like having street credibility. Like, do your time in grade, work your way up. So it was a phenomenal experience working with him, because he was the captain of Engine 27, and I was captain of Truck 26. Young crews. I'm big on training, like we do at Capital. So that's first and foremost. I'm thinking about training stuff. If there's any deficiencies, which there wasn't many, but we, tweaking stuff. So I had a great time going through there. Got the call from Captain Garrett, who's at Truck 5. He told me he was probably going to get made. So it was getting closer and closer to him getting made. So I knew I was going back to Truck 5, but I wasn't sure when. But that was probably back January. So I've been there almost a year, and they sent me back to Truck 5 as captain. So since I've been there, great time. Phenomenal experience. Here lately, we've had multiple first-in fires, and as being a fire officer, that's important for me, because all the crews there, they're top-notch firemen. And I would say they're probably the best in the city. And I'm not saying that because they're my guys, but we train. And each shift, nobody's perfect. We learn from our mistakes. We critique everything we do. My guys on my shift, especially, a couple guys are into the internet. They constantly post videos, which I think is a great tool for the fire service. I think that's, if you look at that, I think it's, I think that's the best recruiting tool. Not to get into the weeds, but so I have a couple guys there that do that daily. So we push out videos, and we all wear the helmet cameras, and if they work or not. But usually we get some good video, and not only that, it's a good training piece, but. Going back, so that experience right there as captain in Truck 5, by far, I'm very blessed to be there. I'm very blessed to have the people that work under me. I have great fire officers. I have great firefighters, and everybody's into the game. Everybody wants to be there, so that's when I get home at night, or when I get done in the morning, I really have a smile on my face. I hate to, it's like leaving a firehouse in the morning. You almost have to pull yourself out of there. Just sit at the table, drink a coffee with the guys. It's a great feeling to have. And so I don't know if you want to add on that, or how it feels. It
is a good feeling, when you're in a station that everybody gets along, even the 3 or 4 shifts that you work with, going off, you can talk, fire shit, which is, keeps you at the table. And then next thing you're getting pages from your wife or your significant other saying, are you coming home anytime soon? I think, I know a little handful of guys that run up at Christiana, which is, for those that don't know, it's one of the busiest volunteer departments in the state of Delaware, if not the busiest. A lot of first-in work, and they really put the pressure on their guys to do the right thing. It's not just a bunch of cowboys. It's definitely a lot of pressure to do the right thing, and then understanding that, we're probably going to be first in, even though we're second or third due. And then what is the job we're going to do? And I'll say the same thing. My time at Kentland, we were the same way. The officers there, the chief officers there, you put a lot of pressure on you to do the right thing, because a lot of people are looking at you. And, when it comes down to it, you're out the door quick. You might get there first. It's your responsibility to make things happen. The cool thing, one of the things that you talked about is, you talked about a couple of things that I want to touch on. One was, spending time in each rank. I want to go back to when you came out of the academy. You went right to a truck company when you came out of the academy?
Correct. Truck 12.
That's pretty kick ass, because, I've always loved truck work, but I've always been, as a new guy, you need to put your time in on an engine company and learn and really solidify the basics. Coming from volunteer ranks, you've had the experience and everything. You're just moving at a different pace. But you get these people that you pull them out of the training academy, you put them on a truck company. They've never been in the fire service before. It's kind of a disservice, because yes, the engine runs quite a bit more with medical locals and the BS calls, but that gets that repetition underneath of your belt of learning how to dismount the rig, have your gear on, take the right tools, doing a little bit of independent thinking if the officer's out doing a circle check or something like that. Fast forward, getting promoted to lieutenant, first and foremost, do your time in each rank so you can really learn the
Right.
job when you move up
Yes.
to technician or master or EVD or FADO, whatever you want to call it. As that driver, spend some time in those positions to really learn the apparatus from the front end. I say it on multiple times. I say it on podcasts. The engine and truck company are the battery of the fire service. I'm taking that baseball term, like pitcher catcher, but the driver and the officer in that piece of apparatus is critical. And a lot of times
Correct.
that officer may be looking over to that driver's seat for some guidance because maybe they're detailed in, maybe they're a new lieutenant. So it's really nice having that senior driver up there to say, no, Lou, we come in this way. The engine's going to go this way. We're going to come in this way. We're going to nose into each other. Or, hey, we're going to come around the block and we can take the alley. That way we can cover a couple of sides, including the rear. So having that experience
Yes.
is huge. And people need to spend time in ranks. And then once you get that driving underneath your belt, then you move on to that lieutenant. We have a problem in the American Fire Service that people want to promote so fast that you really don't get a chance to learn the job. Next thing you know,
Right.
you're sitting for the battalion chief's test, and you may have never ridden the front seat of a first due engine company on a working fire. And to me, that's bad, and that takes us backwards in the fire service. So you saying that, hey, I want to spend a lot of time in these ranks. I did the same thing. I spent 7 years as a firefighter before I ever became a master, and I spent 5 as a master, and then I think 6 or 7 as a lieutenant, 9 as a captain, and then 10 as a battalion before I retired. It's important to know the positions of the apparatus so you can carry that experience forward. So it's huge that you did that. The other thing that you said, and one of the things that always gives me pride in my guys, is watching them go to work and doing the job. But even the bigger gratitude that I get is helping them study for promotional tests, see them take the test, get on the list, and then get made. To me, that's like the pinnacle of accomplishment, is watching guys that were under me grow and move forward in their career. It makes me proud, because I want to say I had a little part of that. They had a huge part of it, but I want to say I had a little part of that, of pushing them to get there. And that's the best feeling in the world. Outside of somebody slapping you on the back saying you're a hell of a fireman, watching your guys get promoted and move through in their career is huge.
Yes, 100%. That's probably one of the most best experiences for me as a lieutenant. Being there, watching the majority of the guys I work with promote, and not only promote, but come out like high on the list. And that's and that's them studying hard. But that's us also, because we're out all day long taking calls, and that's the headset. Like, I would come in the morning, like, fire off like questions. We have so many books we study, and I'd have them in front of me, like, hey, by the way, such and such. You're like, how many out of service hydrant rings are on the apparatus? So, random shit that that's going to be on a test. That honestly doesn't really make a good fire officer, but that's the kind of material they pick from, because it just kind of like, if you're studying, you really read into that stuff. But day in and day out with that stuff, and that was good to see that. And of course, they're putting in the time, they're putting in the reps to study. But that feeling alone, to see them study, to make it and make it, at that level, phenomenal.
Yeah, it's nice to know. It's like, hey, Cap, I want to transfer to your shift, because I really want to get promoted, and I know that you push your guys, you train a lot, you set them up for success. And that's important. A lot of people, I've said on this podcast 1,000 times, is that you get promoted and then you put your arms around it. Well, I got mine, so I'm good. I'm not going to leak out any information because I got mine. And that mentality's got to go away. I pray that when the guys promote to lieutenant captain, they're better than me. I want them to be better than me, because that makes the fire service better. And guys that go from captain to battalion chief, hey man, I want you to be better than me. I don't want you to be equal to me. I want you to be better. I want you to strive to be even better. So when the next person that's coming in behind you, it just continues to make the fire service a really good place. We can't sit on our hands and just say, mediocrity is fine, or, I've done enough. I'm going to take a day off, or I've got mine now. I'm just going to cruise to retirement type of deal, and not really develop people. You're doing a disservice to the fire service, to yourself, and then to your shift. And then ultimately, not to sound a cliche, but the citizens that we're supposed to protect, they call 911 and want the best, So you creating that atmosphere of, hey, if you're going to come work with me, you're going to work. And I'm not afraid to admit it. Maybe I was a dick, but I've had people call me up and say, "Hey, I'm really interested in transferring to your shift." And I've had frank, blunt conversations. Hey, man, I don't think you'd be a good fit here. We work a lot, we train a lot, and we don't sit back. Not even on Sundays. When we go out the door, we need to make sure we're the best. So, I can't tell you not to, but if you're asking me, I'm telling you that you might not be a good fit here. And
Yeah.
maybe that's a dick move, but at the end of the
No,
day,
no, it is. And also, like, I also say, like, I would say piggyback on that and say, look, like, and most, if you're a really good fire officer, like most of us are, like, you're in tune with other people. Yeah, hey, listen, I need you to improve on this. Hey, you're not approved the PO, or like, I talked to your officer, you're not approved to do this, that, and the other thing. And that tells me that maybe your work ethic is a little lacking. So let's work on that. And then, hey, you know what? Another year goes by. Yeah, it's a revolving door, just like, where you work in Montgomery County. So it's like, same thing. It's like, there's spots constantly open. So I don't discredit anyone from applying, but yeah, I'm definitely always like looking at people that's coming in and want to come in, and you do have to deny people sometimes, just because this is you. I want people, it's not like you're not there. You're going to go to fires, definitely. And the truck company is, it's unsupervised as much as, you can read the MOPs, but, you're by yourself 99% of the time. And I'm not a micromanager by any means, and I don't want to babysit anyone. So if you have time and grade in the fire service as firefighter, if you're transferring in, I expect you to bring a good work ethic, and so yeah, it's that's a tough thing to do, but I've done it. And but I always encourage them to, like, hey, do better, and listen, I'll always give it a fair shake second time around, but 100%.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to sound arrogant. And as I got older in my career, I learned how to soften the blow, or to have those conversations. But I'm looking at it from my shift wise. We've got a really good thing going, and as well as I do, it only takes one person that's toxic that can destroy the continuity of the shift. And then it's like it's a grind to come to work and just say, hey, look, we can't be doing this, and now I'm mired in paperwork, and so I had high expectations. I want to raise the bar high. I try to meet the bar that I raise. I'm not trying to be a hypocrite, but we have those conversations, and I've learned as I've gotten older how to be better at having those conversations of, before you do that, why don't you think about, improving some areas right here. And, like you said, we'll come back to it. That's the wisdom with age, but you got to have those conversations because, they may not see it. And, it's just like, based on what I've seen, there's some areas that we can all improve, and this is what you should be looking at. But, like I said, I'm not trying to sound arrogant or anything, but I wanted to make sure that my guys have a good working relationship with everybody on their shift. And then when you have a really good shift, nothing comes into play. The diversity or all that crap that we're going through in the fire service now, we're all firemen. And if you're good at your job, nothing else matters. And that's what it's all about.
At the end of the day, that's what really matters. We're not looking at those things. It's just one of our biggest toughest things right now. Like, and to talk about more of it is like our call line here in the city it's been phenomenal here lately. And I say lately, like within this past year has been tremendously more calls for service. So a little bit about my area. We are in a poverty-stricken area, but it's very diverse. But we have single-family dwellings, commercial, 3-story, 2-story. We have a good mix, things to have fun in as far as fire duty wise. But we also have a high poverty area. So with that brings a lot of calls for EMS. So the biggest challenge as an officer I see is keeping my people engaged and keeping them from getting burnt out. So I'm just coming off the 24-hour shift, so I probably look pretty beat down. But yeah, the biggest thing with that is like keeping my guys engaged. And I've had a couple of them come to me like, we need help and like stuff, and it's tough because just trying to balance everything. But the biggest thing I see is like, as a chief, like how did you keep people engaged? But like I was going to give you a couple scenarios for me is like, as a fire officer, like, like the biggest thing I see is like when we get a fire, it's like a complete reset. Like, you could be on your 30th call of the night on a medic run, and like we don't have the medics available, so we're going out standing by for EMS calls, which I totally get it and all. But guys are burnt out, tired, making mental errors, and then we get that fire. It's like a complete reset. But at the same time, you got to think it is. It's like after the fire, we're high-fiving. We just had one. Actually, we had one last week, and the guys were really tired. Like after that, they're like, man, because we had a second floor fire. It was going pretty good. We pulled up, but the fire was knocked out pretty quick. Water can job for a little while, but fire
Just
went
enough to
out.
piss the engine company off.
Yeah, it was a good time, and we have all good companies around us. We got there pretty quick. It was like right out the door, right down the firehouse. But fire was out, so it was a row of homes. We had CO that was infiltrated in multiple dwellings, so it's a good thing. You always check the exposures. We used to not do that. Now we do it, so it's a great thing because 2 doors down, we had I think it was in 1,000 levels of CO. But anyway, so we had to vent all that out. So you're talking like fire's out, overall's complete, wrapping up. Yeah, we gotta vent all these. So guys are like really exhausted. So I'm trying to keep them in tune. Like, hey man, listen, we're gonna get through this and stuff. But as a company officer, it's tough. That's one of the biggest challenges I see in my battalion is like, because we take a tremendous amount of reps of calls, tremendous amount, and it could vary from like a 2 a.m. call for a toothache to the next minute you're doing CPR to the next minute you're on a 2 alarm fire, whatever the case is. But so I was going to ask you, like, how do you keep people in check? Like, how do you keep them engaged? Because I had a few things I do, but a good talking thing. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. When when I was a captain, I felt it important to make sure we get out and we do something.
Yeah.
A lot of the stations I was at, it was hit or miss. A lot of EMS calls, not a whole bunch of fire, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
So we always did something. We went out and made sure, we went out and pulled the ropes out. The stuff that we didn't do that often, but if we had to go into service right away to set up systems and things like that, making sure that we felt comfortable setting those things up. Go out on the air, looking at buildings, getting to the Charlie side, taking a look. Hey, how would you force the door? And allow the firefighters and the technicians to kind of be more engaged. I liked putting it back on the firefighters and the technicians. Hey, why don't you lead a drill? Why don't we talk a little bit about forcible entry? Or, hey, what would you do in this situation? And things like that. Mm-hmm. And then let them kind of expand and say how they were going to do things. When I became a battalion chief, I made sure that, everybody needs to be engaged in something. I need some type of drill that you're engaged your people. I don't care if it's at the kitchen table or if you're out in the engine room or you're just going out on the air, but keep the mind working. Every now and then I would do something. I did it a couple of times as a battalion chief. I'd get to work pretty early. One in particular, I went, grabbed the one of the mannequins that we had, one of our drag dummies, and put him in the back of the battalion vehicle and drove him down to the Northwest Branch, which is an offshoot of the Patuxent River, part of the Anacostia Waterway. Anyway, it's there's a high rise down there, but there's an old abandoned bridge that goes over top of this little tributary. And I actually got out of the car and I dragged this thing probably down about 50, 60 feet down an embankment and just kind of threw him down by the riverbed, and then went back to the firehouse and got all my stuff together. And then I drove back down there and called up the captain and said, hey, called up a couple of different companies, said, I need you to come down here, non-emergency. We're going to be on a detail. We got some stuff we got to do. They get on the scene and say, hey, Chief, what's up? And I said, there's a dude down there by the riverbank. I need you to get him up right now.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. And engine crews and the medic crew, they got all set up, got the truck company all set up, took Stokes basket down there. Medics went down there, evaluated, hauled them up. We were there for a couple of hours and brought them up. So little things like that to try to keep them engaged of, hey, this may happen. And, funny thing is a month later, literally a quarter mile from that spot, they had a dude that broke his ankle was up by the Northwest Branch. They had to go down there, scoop them up, bring them up with a rope system.
Nice.
So it was actually pretty cool. I went there and snapped some pictures. But I want to make sure that my guys understand how important it is to continually train.
Right.
And it's the same thing in a position that I'm in now is more of an administrative position in Frederick, even though I have my hands in operations. But I try to make sure that if there's any training that the career guys are doing, that the volunteers know about it as well. That they get their hands into being able to do some training. We offer live burns throughout the year for the different volunteer companies they want to come up. And my boss, Shane Darwick, and I, we get to participate in stuff like that. But I think it's important to keep people engaged and not let them get complacent. Just because you have a TV in your firehouse and you have recliners doesn't mean that you should be in them all the time.
Right.
You know, you're constantly running calls. And one of the things that you said that I always laugh about is that that whole saying, "Idle's hand is the devil's work." And when you start not running those fires, you can see people getting antsy. That's when we start getting in trouble by doing dumb shit around the firehouse. But the moment you go out for a box and you got a job, it kind of resets everything, and everybody's back in a good frame of mind. You know, like you said, we're high-fiving around the coffee table. But when I always said, a good fire, and it's not good for the public, but for us, you know, a good job always resets and puts us back in the right frame of mind. So it's important to take hold of those calls and make sure that, you know, we're doing the after action reviews and the critiques and stuff like that. But that's how we keep people engaged, and it's important. Which is why one of the things, you know, with Capital Fire, we go out and we you know, you and I, we'll beat these guys down in the training. We want to give them their money's worth, but we also want to make sure that what they're going through is extremely challenging. Right. And the chances are they're not going to see that in their career. But if they get into a situation, they've seen it before, and they should be able to get themselves out of it.
Yeah, and also speak on that too. That's very important. But yeah, so as training, I'm glad you brought that up. But we're big on training. I'm big on training, obviously. But even if it's going out, like, you know, I never a day goes by, we'll go out, we'll try to do something, whether it's like at the firehouse, we'll talk about stuff, we'll critique something online. Like I said, a couple of my guys, internet savvy, everybody has cell phones nowadays, but so we're constantly like looking at stuff. But training, I can't stress that enough. It's important to get out and know your community. So going back to where I'm from, we have a big homeless population, and they tend to live in vacants, obviously. One of my big things, not so much over this past year, but I used to, like, we went out last year, but we would go out and like actually like look in these vacants. We can't train in them anymore, just for liability purposes. But I would still make a point to like walk the alleyways, because a lot of the stuff in the front of a vacant is a lot different in the rear. And so in Baltimore, a lot of the people that live in these vacants make entry through the rear. So you're driving by, let's say North Avenue, and you're like, that's a vacant, it's all boarded up. Well, guess what? It's got another story in the rear, right? So you go in, and there could be a whole family in there. And so I was fortunate enough a year or two ago to be exposed to a few of those incidents, and we put it out on the internet and got a good exchange on it. More importantly, like for like Baltimore or Philly or Detroit, DC, places that deal with these kind of incidents every day. So it's a good training piece to you go in there, you see whole families in there that live in these places. So as far as training wise, if anybody's listening to that has vacants, I know Wilmington, anywhere, even in like the combination departments, you'll have areas that have vacant squatters. So like we've been fortunate enough to get into these places and see, like, they'll modify the construction. You'll have a structure that's gutted, but they'll make their own stairs and all that stuff. So, but it's a good training piece. A lot of people I've found, I've been fortunate enough to find a lot of people in fires, but they've been in vacants, and it's just taking the time to look it out and figure out what's going on. So going through that is like, being a good company officer, you want to take your people through these vacants. Say look, there is people living in these. Now, granted, like we do have a lot of, where I'm at, we have a lot of structures that are weakened, very dangerous, and we do mark them out now. And I will say that we're pretty good with that. We were just out the other day rechecking addresses for it's a code X-ray program. So the department, we've taken a really good lead on that as far as like looking at these vacants and seeing what kind of structural stability is involved there. Because a lot of them, over years there's trees growing through them. But there are some that are like, that the door's open, people set up shop in there, and they're structurally sound, so you can get in there and do a good search. But you're still risking a lot. But going back on the training piece, yeah, we try to get out every day, like training stuff. Like we went out and did a drill on ladder placement with the cones, dropping the cones in. But all my guys are very creative. I don't have to come in and like, hey, this is what we're doing. Everybody always has an idea. That's the most, as a company officer, it's good to have that too. So you don't always have to take that. You have people come up like, yeah, I want to train on this, Capt, I want to do this. So it's good. It's good that we have that. Matter of fact, we were at the academy yesterday. Guys, we had to take a bottle out there. So I'm like, hey, we have a door, force door. It's a Nebraska door. I think we used it down in Fairfax. we use that at the, but I was like, hey, we have this door. Let's try this out while we have just a couple minutes to downtime. Let's try this door at night. If you guys, man, this is tough. I'm like, hey, listen, this is why we're here. We train, we get the reps in when we can, because when we leave here, we're nonstop on call. So yeah, so training as a company officer is big to me. So yeah.
What about, now I want to talk a little bit about, we'll get into the vacants a little bit, but I want to talk about your crew. You run 4 on your ladder trucks, you ride on a tiller truck. And one of the things I want to get back to when you talk about moving through your positions, tiller is the best job in the world. I got to do that for many years, but it is the best job. But as your crew, obviously, if you've got a seasoned crew that you've worked with, you really don't have to say a lot because they have their jobs, their duties that they're supposed to do. The only really time you're going to say anything is if you're deviating from the plan, and that's just a quick communication. Mm-hmm. So with your expectations and tools and things like that, what are your crews coming off with, when you're running, obviously, different structures, but what are you looking at? And who's running forcible entry? What's the tiller man doing? What's your driver doing?
Yeah, good question. Baltimore City, 99% of the time, the truck company, always 4. Across the board, 4: rescue, engine, squad, 4 people. So driver, first in fire, driver is going to the roof, preparing to ventilate. Now, first floor basement fire, you might not ventilate that, obviously, but it all dictates what's going on with fire. So driver is responsible for driving, setting the ladder up, getting it in place. The officer size up, calling additional resources, so forth. Forcible entry, that's my game. So I have to open that door up, whether it's vacant, inward, outward, commercial. So I have to attack those doors by myself. The step, which is the person behind me, along with the tiller person, they're throwing ladders. So 2-story 24, 3-story 35. You work your way down. First in truck, you're taking care of the alpha side. So 2-story, I'm throwing a 24. Well, I'm not, but the tiller and the step is throwing a 24. And we work to the first due truck company is always the fire building and to the right. Second due truck company is going to go to the rear. Same setup. The officer sides up on the trolley side if you're first in, and then works through there. I do see in the very coming future that we're probably going to put 2 EVDs on the roof. EVDs, like truck drivers, instead of 1. So historically, we always just had 1 person going to the roof. So accountability, there's a lot that can go wrong on the roof by yourself. Because nobody's up there really seeing you. So I think that's going to change very soon, where we take the second due truck company and put that driver on the roof as well. So you have 2 people on the roof, but same thing. It mimics the rear. So if you're coming on the rear as a truck company, you're the trolley side, give a trolley side report. And that was a big thing for Christiana at Newcastle County. And I started doing that back there a few years ago, giving more detailed, I got 2 stores in the rear, basement access. So, and there's other guys too for PG County. It helped our department really wait a second, this kind of makes sense. Let's put this in. So that's actually a policy now. So trolley side, trolley side report. If the truck company's there, you're looking at basement access, forcible entry, built code doors. You're looking at power lines. Most of our power in the city is coming through the rear. So access for that. Structural conditions. So the trolley side report, so the truck company rear, same thing, ladders, and then go to the right of that. So you're looking off the Bravo exposure in the rear. And then where we get to those 2. So functionally, so as a company officer, I'm forcing entry, going in, finding the fire, and then doing my search. I'm big on the tick. We use Draeger. I've been very successful with that, with finding people. We had one probably 7 or 8 months ago. We found one. Very easy, second floor fire, front bedroom, go up steps. One of my biggest successes, and we teach this, and I try to teach this in students when we're teaching together, is telling people look, take the few, don't have a story, don't have a whole conversation with someone, but people outside, they're your best credibility. Hey, who lives there? Where are they normally at? Who are they? Just get a picture of what's going on, because that's helped me out tremendously on fires. I've focused on that. If I'm VES or VEIS, and if I'm searching on second floor, third floor, I'm not just haphazardly going up a ladder and going to the window. If somebody tells me, hey, I'm asking, where are these people at? Hey, look, my husband's on the second floor. Yeah, I'm going to go up there and do that. So that's been very helpful with that. So as a truck officer, search, force entry, search, getting the victim, figuring out what additional resources you need, whether I need a ground ladder to the front, bring people out. Aerial or obviously textbook is what bringing them out of stairwell. So, but we had one really captured on our thermal a few months ago, probably 6 or 7 months ago. We used Dregger, and lo and behold, those cameras, when you turn them on, they do record. And so we've been recording a lot of rescues for many years. I think Rescue 3, FDNY, those guys, or someone up that way, had a lot of good footage that, so we got a hold of that, and guys at the academy, which by the way do a great job, they got that information. So I was able to see that in real time, just to see it. Basically, there was nothing heroic about it. Walk up the steps, capture it, victims lying on the ground. But yeah, just as another training piece is like, look, this is why we use these things. This is why when we come in the morning, we make sure the drywall's cleaned off them, they're charged up, because they, they'll take a second off a 25-minute search. It's like you're in there looking for these people. Whether you're VESing, like a few people I found is like just coming off that window pane, just dropping down do a quick search, bam, they're right there, and then drop the camera down and get them. Otherwise, you're not always going to find everybody either. But it's like that's been a big help for us. But not to get in the weeds with all that. But yeah, so as a truck company, that's 4-person crew. That's pretty much what it is. Like we have 4 people. We're supposed to work in pairs, but obviously that doesn't always happen.
There's a lot of things that we're supposed to do, but it just doesn't work out that way. It looks great on paper, but in reality, it doesn't happen. But the cool thing about the thermal imager camera, that most apparatus, now the prices have come down. Most apparatus carries them. Use them. Take them with you. They're making them smaller and smaller, so there's really no excuse to be able to do it. It's just another tool. Especially take the window out. A lot of smoke coming out of the window. Stick that thing through there. Scan the room. You'll be surprised what you can find. Hone right in on the victim and come out. So yeah, take advantage of those tools. Throwing ladders. One of my biggest things that I tell my guys is like, I say, why do we throw ladders? And then I ask them, who are the ladders for? And you'll get various answers. I said, in a nutshell, the ladders are for us. Us, period. We might bring a victim out on that ladder, but we went up that ladder for us to go in there to get that victim. So all ladders get thrown for rescue. And I make sure people understand that. I say, you might learn in the academy above the windowsill for ventilation or to the left of the windward side. I'm taking a window out. I'm not going to make sure of it. I'm not going to get cut with glass and everything, but that ladder's being thrown for rescue. And it's for us, because when I come out of that window in an emergency, I want to feel that ladder there. So throwing ladders is important. And I tell my guys, we're not fortunate always to have 4, we may have 3. And I tell my driver, I said, before you think about putting that stick up, get the ladders to the windows first, because we're going in. The cool thing is that you're talking about that you do the forcible entry, and a lot of guys don't get to do that conventional forcible entry that often, in the suburbs. A lot of people are home, doors are unlocked, and things like that. So the fact that you get to get that tool in your hand and force a ton of doors is key, because then you can start passing that down to your people when they're coming in, and what works. You kind of become pretty savvy with the different doors that you see right away just by sizing up. Hey, this kind of door I'm going to be using the Halligan and the axe, or hey, I might need the hydroram for this particular door or whatever. But that's
I actually used we had on Capt Fire, we had that one doc sheet. It's forcible entry fine on Capt Fire. You go out and I have a training board in the watch desk. It's like all all kind of stuff. But that's one of the things I use is like go out and know your area. Like look at what you got, and like have the size up. So before you even get there, like hey, on Rob Street I might have this door's button up, or like. But yes, as a truck officer, I always have Plan A and Plan B. So Plan A is what conventional, and then Plan B is assault. And the way we have our apparatus lined up is like I bring everything is brought to the show, which is the doorstep right away. So I don't have to make those multiple trips, because I unofficially had a helmet cam. We still have them, but and I use that for a training piece. Just look at the dumb stuff I do, and even like we were just talking about this. Like you might get a residential door that has a glass pane, and here you are, like you're trying to force this door. Like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, punch the glass out, reach in the lights, like just the little things, but you learn from that, and then you pass that on. But so the biggest thing with that, like forcible entry, I've been fortunate enough to do that. And what I try to do is like a lot of our medical calls, no Knox box, nobody answering the door, our thing is like police for forced entry, then, hey guys, force this door, because, hey, it's alarm bells, it's a habitual offender for alarms, force the door. That's where you get your training from. That's where you get your practice. That's where you get your reps from. And that makes you a better firefighter. Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it. But as a truck officer, there's a lot of different stuff. That's just half the battle.
When working with the engine company, you're coming out of a dual service house, engine and truck. What are some of the things you're communicating with your station lieutenant or your counterpart coming off that engine? What are some of the things you're thinking about? Obviously, your area.
Yeah.
It may not be uncommon to see, the truck go left, the engine go right, and you're going to come back around and meet up in the middle somewhere or whatever.
So we had an engine there. They relocated it when they closed Truck 15, but we still, our engine companies we're pretty. Everybody's pretty quick on top of each other. So my firehouse has a truck, 2 medics, and an EMS supervisor, but our engines are all pretty close together. So we had a fire the other night. Like I said, that one I was talking about, a second floor fire. We pulled out a few blocks down the street. You can see it. You knew you had a fire when you're going down the street, but biggest thing is like same thing as a truck officer. You go in, talk to people, doors wide open. Like, where's the fire at? Who's there? Still got to do a primary. And one of my biggest things is I hate people saying like everybody's reported out. You still got to do a primary because you don't know what the status that person is out front. They might have set that fire or whatever the case is. That's a weak radio term for anybody that's listening to that. Don't use that. But so yeah, you go in and we just here recently like relocated our water cans, so we try to get them to at least put a knock on the fire. So if I got to go and do a search in that front bedroom, my step person can hold that fire. I could do a quick search. But as far as the engine company goes, yeah, a lot of times we're on the fire at the same time they are. They might be there before us. Everybody's good. They might start forcing entry. We've been given some DeWalt tools, the engine companies have, so they can start making a cut on the door, especially the vacants. So the biggest thing with that as a truck officer is like, hey, look, I'm right here with you. I'm going to go ahead of you and search that room. Don't put water on me because when I go in that room, I'm going to be hot. And I've had a couple of people actually have to put me out because you don't fire every once in a while. So it's nice to have that, but at the same time, you want to know like, hey, listen, especially with the newer people because they get worked up. So you got to really be line control. And I'm not an engine company person by any means, but like just talking with the engine officer, like, hey, the fire's knocked, work. Like obviously if I have a room off well involved, that's a recovery. That's not a searchable room. So I want to work away from that. But yeah, keeping them on your coattails, knowing where they're at, because they help too with the search. Getting that hydraulic ventilation in is key because your EVDs, your drivers aren't bringing lights up right away. So and those little stream lights that give you that aren't going to light up that whole that floor. So you're calling that primary and you want to make sure that, hey, listen, I want to make sure I clear everything out. So yeah, hydraulic ventilation, working with that engine company, make sure they're getting that place vented out once the fire's knocked. And ensuring the fire's knocked too, because it's, like most of those places we have, most fires don't occur in like a decent house. It's usually hoarding conditions. So you have a lot of shit burning. You got to go through it, clean it out. So, but yeah, definitely knowing your engine companies, knowing their limitations. Like I try to see when I come into work, I try to see who's working. That might gauge me from going to that second floor window to do a VES because, hey, I might be in a bad area where like, they might be delayed or whatever the case is. So that kind of gauges what I want to do. And I always tell my people that too, like, think about who's coming and where they're at. So even with like victim management, if I pull somebody, like we find somebody on the second or third floor, I'll call them and say like, hey, stairs intact or, hey, is it better to take them out the second floor window? So, but the engine company, as far as fire suppression, they play a big role on like, make or break in a lot of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think one of the things you hit on with the communication portion, with, letting the engine come, hey, I'm going to go off and search on this right side room. I might be ahead of you a little bit, don't hit me with the hand line.
Yeah.
But so they know that you're there, they can cover that search or they can protect, or maybe they're going to hold off, while you get that room searched. And when you come back in, we'll move down the hallway. The other part with that communication is, like you said, reported all occupants out. That still doesn't preclude you from doing a search. That's just saying that somebody said all the occupants are out, but we're still going to do that primary search aggressively, not, not like, oh, I'm not going to find anybody. You don't know. And so it's important that, as you move forward, you took the battalion chief's test, understanding that when you arrive on the scene, hey, chief, they reported everybody out of the house. Great. Let me know when your primary search is done.
Right.
So just remember why we're here. Even though they said this, it's like, hey, it's like, you going down the road for a house fire and your communication comes back and said, yeah, they said the fire's out. You guys can go in service. No, we're going to go still check just to make sure that the fire is out. But that communication is key, to working with that engine company. And I've said this a million times, just because you're on the truck doesn't mean you can't help get that hand line in place.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Especially if it's a long stretch, we were just, RJ and I were just talking with Charlie Hendry, another guy that works with us with Capital Fire. We were talking about engine company stuff, and don't be a turd. Just because you're on the truck company doesn't mean you can't help get that hand line in place, especially if they're stretching a 400-foot line going upstairs. If a couple's wrapped around a newel post or going through a door, or around a tire, help get that line in place. You're just making that fire is going to go out, so that it allows you to do your job. So you got to work together, whether you're on the engine or the truck or not. But that communication is key. Even saying like, hey, we got a report of people trapped up on the second floor. We got fire on the first. I'm heading upstairs, letting that engine company know that you're going upstairs, and letting that chief officer know that you're going upstairs, that you don't have a hose line. So the next one has to come upstairs to protect us, but we're going upstairs to do our search.
Right. So to piggyback on that as well, is like, I think as a fire officer, I try to, and what I've found is helpful. So if we have a pretty good fire going on, the incident commander, you can tell like in their voice, they're getting worked up. So as a fire officer, as a firefighter, we come to work because we love the job. We don't want to be pulled out of these places. We don't want to be exterior operations, but there comes to a point where, you got to get out. But I think a big thing with that as a fire officer, but also as an active battalion chief, or just in general, listening to the radio, is like, if you're inside these fires, you gotta really like let them know what's going on. Like, look, chief, I have a room in context. Paint the picture for them, because all they see is fire, and the one person's yelling on the radio about something that gets worked up, that's newer, that doesn't have that experience. That might change their decision on the outside. So I think it's important also for communication pieces, like let them know, like, look, I got fire on the second floor, fire's getting darkened down, we're making progress, because we always have the stairs, right? We can always retreat down the stairs, drop down a level, back the line down. But that's one of my things I use as a company officer. If I'm inside, if I'm trying to keep us in there, obviously if you have structural weakness or something that's going on the outside, I always ask them too, like, how's the trolley side looking, or how's the whatever side I'm working off, how are we looking on the fire knock, and that kind of keeps them like, hey, I know what's going on. As an officer, as your chief, I'm sure you like to hear that, just to kind of keep people in check.
I think one of the things transitioning from the apparatus to the battalion car, I would tell my guys, look, just give me information, make it factual, and I'll let you do your job. Because I'm not in there, but I'm relying on you to give me the facts. So my guys would always like, hey, it looks like we got a room off the second floor. You should see a change here in a second. Hey, how's it look out there, chief? Whatever. And I'll make sure that what you're telling me matches, and then we can go forward with that program. But that's the biggest thing, is that, we talk about push-pull communication, is give me information. I'm not seeing what's in there. You are. So let me know what's going on. Hey, we're having a hard time getting the line into the second floor. It looks like we're dealing with some hoarding conditions. Okay, I can start calling for additional resources if we're going to have to start moving stuff. So if you don't let me know that, if I'm still seeing this fire's moving, I'm not seeing the line going through the front door, it's not moving, I'm going to find out why. And if, chief, we got hoarding conditions. All right, I needed to know that 5 minutes ago, so I can keep track of what's going on. Maybe we need to bring the line in another direction. But that communication is key, because I'm not in there anymore. You are, and I rely on you to give me that information, so we can adjust our plan if we have to, or I can give you some more resources, or marry you up so I can help you get that line in place or whatever, or start pulling shit out so you can move forward. But that's the key, with the communication, and just to make sure that things are going good on the inside. Keep me calm, keep me, happy, because you feed me that information, but be truthful about it. And I'm sure when you're working as the bump up, it's a different feeling going from the front seat of a piece of apparatus to driving a car where you're not inside, and things that you think should be happening aren't, and they're not happening as fast as you want them to happen, but you have to go back to your days, things, they don't move as fast as you want them to move inside. So the chief is probably like, why isn't things happening? And you're trying to make things happen. So that whole communication back and forth is pretty important.
Right. And you asked about the tools, what we carry.
Yeah.
So as a truck officer, I prefer 99% of the time I'll take a New York hook, metal hook, and a Halligan bar. And my Halligan bar is usually married up pretty good, like pretty doctored up. So also, like plan B, I always bring a chainsaw, whether it's a DeWalt, or we have a couple of different choices to use, but we have a pretty good selection of tools. But definitely a chainsaw, a chainsaw sander if I have a vacant, or if I got a residential door that's buttoned up pretty good, that I'm not getting a bite on. Instead of like messing around, I'm going to cut that door and I want to get it out of the equation. But as far as the other firefighters, it depends. I mean, I always try to tell them to, like, hey, we still have those fiberglass hooks. We don't use them, but they're on the apparatus. So,
right.
Yeah, so 99% of the time, New York hook, our guys, we are fortunate to demo out a lot of stuff. People send us a lot of stuff. We have guys have their own tools they bring in. If anybody knows Jerry Smith, good friend of mine, he had his own tools, and but we all love different stuff, and we all use things. But as a truck officer, for me, a New York hook and a Halligan bar, and a good saw to get that door open. If that's what I'm passed with, we do commercial, and we just actually I was off, but the crew had on A shift had a decent commercial fire. Man, training pays off. Again, like getting the stuff out to them, whether it's in the wash desk to come and see it, but like roll up doors. So many times you see a roll up door, it's like a TV cut or like something really simple. But yeah, right. Phenomenal, great cut. Use the Halligan slats out. I mean, and of course they got it all on video. They're internet superstars. But again, it's something as an officer, as a captain of the firehouse, you see that, it's like, it makes you feel really good because that training pays off. So so everybody's in tune. Everybody, but tool wise, it varies. But as far as truck officer, that there are my tools that I like to use for the most part.
That's and making sure that the tools that you're bringing in, like you said, your crew being seasoned and everything, everybody's grabbing the right things based on the structure that you're running, whether it's residential or commercial or things like that. We're getting down towards the last bit of the podcast here. I wanted to talk just a little bit about some upcoming things for you. I know you and I talked when we were working up in Westchester a couple of weekends ago. You taken the battalion chief's test, and I don't remember. Did you get your results yet, or you're not sure?
Not yet. There's some type of delay in the testing results, but I feel confident. I felt pretty good about the test, but I also feel good that everybody that took it are great people. Like wherever I fall at, it is what it is. But I think everybody there is able to fulfill that role just as good, if not better. So I'm happy with that. So I studied my ass off, but like I said, I don't go to the reviews. We did the review. I bypass that and I focus on the oral portion. So we do it's like 100 question written test based off of 7 to 8, 10 books, and then we do the oral portion. Inbox, tactical, and so forth. So, I feel pretty good about it. So, but we haven't heard. I'm still a captain.
Right.
And so and I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that too. So
at the end of the day, but you took the test. You want to see the results. You want to do well on the test. And, like I said, it's like going to a whole new job. Once you transition from the fire apparatus to the battalion vehicle. And the cool thing is that I've had people tell me when I first got promoted, it's like, oh, well, you don't really feel like you're part of the fire department anymore. You're not part of a shift anymore. And I didn't buy into that. I think it's what you make it. If you decide that, well, I'm a chief now, and I'm not going to hang around the guys at the station or whatever. I didn't buy into that. What I did was I made sure I did my rounds in my battalion, and I'd go in and talk to the captains first. Hey, how's everything going? And then we'll just kind of BS around the table a little bit. And I told my guys, if you don't want me to stay, don't engage me in conversation. But if you want to start talking about fireman shit, then I'm going to stay and we're going to talk about, fireman stuff. Yeah. But also knowing when it's time to, time to leave, you don't want to park there and stay there all day. You've got your other jobs to do. But I think it's what you make it. And that if you, if you start to feel like you're not part of the shift anymore, part of your battalion, well, I think that's your fault. And
Right.
I think, when you've got the reputation as that, hey, I'm a fireman, I've worked my way up through the ranks, I earned this, and I just want to come around and just talk to people and find out how everybody's doing. And what can I do to make my battalion more successful? And what can I help you do to make you more successful? What do you need from me? And
Yeah.
and just be there for your guys when they need you. The cool thing is that when you're in a good battalion that is very aggressive and they do the job, it's very small moves on the battalion part, the chief's part, that you have to do, and they make you look good every single day. And you don't really have to say a lot on the radio. You don't have to get a lot of directions because they're already doing their job. You're just making sure you're taking care of everything on your tactical worksheet, moving people where they need to be, and then getting updates from them and giving them what they need. But at the end of the day, if you've got a really good working battalion that's aggressive and knows their job, their officers know their job, and they know their people, they make you look good. And
Right.
the biggest thing is to make sure that they know you appreciate how good they make you look. And that's where you start to get your credibility. And that's where you start to get that respect, that, hey, he's here for us and he really appreciates the work that we do. So, it got to the point where your guys would feel like they let themselves down if they didn't meet your expectations because they respect you that much. And that's how I felt, when I retired. I really enjoyed going to calls and just watching my guys work. I didn't really have to say much, but just watch them go in and just do the job, and the fire goes out, the emergency goes away, and then they come back out like professionals. And to me, I liked watching that. And I wish I had more of that on video. I didn't get a lot of video, in my time in the battalion vehicle, but watching them be successful was what was awesome for me.
Yeah, most definitely. So it's if I'm lucky enough to get that, it'd be definitely a big change for me, because it's nothing better than that. That will be a big change. But either way, our department as a whole has had big changes here in the past year as far as operationally wise. So we have some really good people in place well above, and good things are happening. And I will say, like, huge props to the Fire Academy. Our Fire Academy is phenomenal. They have done really well with training. We have an advanced firefighter removal class. It was based off of past incidents in Baltimore City with line of duty injuries and deaths, and they've mimicked a lot of those calls. And the training, I can tell you, man, the training is phenomenal, and we have the right players in there to hopefully keep continuing to provide this training. So good things are happening for our department, and I'm not just fluffing it, but I'm telling you, like, as a firefighter and as a fire officer, it's a good feeling to have that coming to work, knowing that we're all in this together, and it's a great time for the department. We still have a lot of issues to work through, but I think as far as that goes, we are doing better. So
good. Well, again, Mike, we're at the 1 hour mark. I like to keep these at 1 hour. That helps people,
yes, sir.
If they're listening either on the way or to and from work or whatever. But I appreciate you coming on, and
yes, sir.
I like really getting into the tactic stuff. It's not always about this whole, high level thinking. I'm not a high level thinker, but when it comes to leadership, but more of what is it for the officers that are riding the seat, and what are they doing? What have they learned along the way? To prepare themselves as they move forward in their career, and how they learn to be leaders, and being able to take the things that you learn, and as you move forward, past the captain and into the battalion rank and assistant chief and so forth, be there for your people. And the biggest thing is never forgetting where you came from.
Right.
Understanding, once you see that other side, how people get themselves in trouble and things like that. But as a senior staff battalion chief, and you make sure that they don't get to that point where they're going to get themselves in trouble. It's like, hey man, I've lived and breathed that dumb shit. Don't do that, because that's going to get you in trouble. Stop here. Let's change course. It allows them to have a longer, healthier, and trouble-free career for the most part.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
So. But again, thanks for coming on the show, and it's a lot of good stuff. And truck company is where I'm at. I love it, still love it. Do it at my volunteer house, and just being able to have people listen to your thoughts of what you do working on a busy truck and the stuff that you see every day. And the bottom line is, even though you work in a more depressed area or poverty stricken area, the citizens are there
Yes.
and they need your help.
Yes.
So you treat them
Yeah.
with respect. And that's the one
Yes.
thing that I've
Yeah.
always told people is like, it doesn't matter their economical status, their race, or anything like that, or where
Right.
they are
Yeah.
in life. You're there to help them. And you treat them with respect. You treat them like
Right.
humans, because that's what we do.
Yeah, and to finish up on that is like, it's a great feeling like being there. I've been there for a while, and people come up to you like, "Hey, you're still here," like talking to you, and like, like it's you don't discredit anyone, whether they're poor or like I always say like it's Lamar Jackson, his condo, water leak, or like the homeless person. You treat them the same way no matter what, no matter
Yep.
what.
100%.
So that's the biggest thing is like like because you have a job to do, and you don't discredit anyone because hey, one day they might be the mayor of the city or whatever the case is. Like it pays dividends, and so be in that area. Yeah, it's very challenging at times, but yeah, you have to stay on a steady pace. That makes sense.
Cool.
So,
all right, Mike. Well, take
Chief,
care of yourself.
appreciate
Be
it.
safe,
Thank you.
and keep me informed of when you get your results back. Drop me a text
Yes,
and all
sir.
that stuff, and let me know how you do.
Yes, sir. It's good talking to you, Chief.
You too.